Galimera, 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 good morning, good morning, good morning. And what I would call a more godly hour for a broadcast, even though we were up early this morning because I had to take one of the little ones to the vets this morning, little Kiki, for a bit of a checkup. But other than that, she was all right. And also it gave me a chance to have another re-look at the news, what's been going on in the last 24 hours as well. I thought I'd start the broadcast today from around the side of the house, looking up towards the hill where we had the fire the other day. Just to let you know, the fire brigade have been driving up towards that location. I think they're basically setting up picket points in certain various locations just to make sure that nothing untoward goes on, and that there's a first response there ready to go into action if anything, God forbid, should actually occur. One thing I did notice yesterday, I was down in Kalamaki doing some work for Costa's Pool Bar, and as I was leaving there, probably around about 11 o'clock in the morning, I did notice a lot of smoke in the area at the end of the old part of Kalamaki, around where the cave bar and the cotton club is. I'm not sure if there was a fire there, but there was a lot of smoke hanging around that area. There's been nothing being reported in the local press as to whether there's been any other fires like wildfires being reported in the last 24 hours. And I've got to be honest, going into town yesterday, round about the same time, about 11 o'clock to 11:30, there was an air of a smell of smoke hanging around. And that basically has come from the mainland, where smoke has kind of wafted across. And there was that kind of funny haze in the air as well. So all in all, we know the fires over there have been very intensive. And I think we're seeing a little bit of it here in a bit of the fallout in the way that the smoke has been carried by the weather system. Although today, I've got to be honest, there is a haze. There is a breeze blowing as well, and that's obviously of a worry to the firefighters as well, because obviously it's when the winds are blowing, and obviously you've got the excessive heat. That is what can spark a wildfire very, very easily. And there's Jane quickly rushing away, leaving me a cup of tea so I can get on with my report. Right, can I say once again, thank you to all those people again who've been sending me little messages as well about the reports and stuff throughout the day. And also, could I just remind you as well, before I forget, they are collecting, starting today, little supplies. If you've got any toiletries, any food items like tinned goods or dried foods, that kind of stuff, they are collecting in various points around the island. I do know if you're in the Sulavi area, Nefis Travel are making collections there. So if you just want to go to the offices of Nefis Travel, drop off anything that you might want to donate in the way of dried tin foods, toiletries, stationery as well, drop it, and toilet paper, whatever, drop those off at Nefis Travel. Also in town as well, in the Labour office, opposite where the hunting the hunting office is, in Rogden Street. Go and see them there on the first floor, drop off any other supplies there. And you may find that your local areas around Zakynthos are doing collection points somewhere for people to donate stuff to give to people, obviously, who've lost everything. And there are people who have lost everything in these last few days. Also as well, just to remind you that the risk is still in place in regards fires here. That's staying in place until tomorrow, when it will obviously be then reviewed. Once again, to remind you, there is a curfew, a fire curfew, 6 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning in wooded areas, places off the beaten track. You're not allowed in those type of areas between those times. Okay, again, if you're caught in those areas, you may be arrested and suspected of arson. All right, so once again, please, please, please stay on the beaten track. If there's an area where there's cordon taping, don't drive down it. Just stay away from it, because it's there for a reason, and that is so that you do not inadvertently cause a fire by entering into those locations. Also as well, the weather for today then, thank you to the lovely Amanda for a weather forecast. She says it's going to be hot and hazy. We're still in yellow alert at the moment as regards heat. Extremely high temperatures today. Temperatures between 34 degrees. However, it's going to feel more like 38. And I've got to be honest, yesterday, the temperatures were still very high. I was seeing readings of 39 and 40 on my scooter while driving around. So again, still very, very hot at the moment here. And it's going to stay that way for a little bit longer. Right. Just for flight arrivals today, which is of interest, we've got 6 flights in from the UK today. We've got 1 flight in from Glasgow, we've got 2 in from Birmingham, 1 in from Manchester, 1 in from London, and we also have a Liverpool flight in that's in about 9 o'clock tonight, very, very late. So again, the Brits are still coming on their holidays, which is absolutely fantastic to see. And again, 6 flights from the UK in today. Right, now COVID in the last 24 hours, the COVID figures have started to die down a bit, but not by much, I've got to be honest. You might remember yesterday I did report to you 4,181 new cases across the country. Well, that has dropped down to 3,745 new cases reported across the country. That brings the grand total since the pandemic started to 524,871. Now, 15 new cases were identified at checks into the country. That number was up on the day before, where it was 11. And again, looking at the islands of interest to us, Mykonos at the moment, they've had 46 new infections in the last 24 hours. Rhodes has had 99 new infections within the last 24 hours. And Steve Kimberley said to me, I'm actually coming over, Ginge, in about 10 days' time to visit Zakynthos after my holiday in Rhodes. So again, we'll be looking out for you, fella, and that you have a safe journey over. Also, as well, Macardo, that's the a little island very close to where we are in the Aegean. That has had 18 new cases on their island. Now, Curfew, an island that we've expected to go into the red at some point, but still at the moment has managed to avoid going into red. Curfew at the moment has had 54 new infections recorded within the last 24 hours, while Kefalonia has only had 8. Zakynthos, we've had a small reductions on infections, and we recorded 12 new infections here on the island within the last 24 hours. Now, hopefully, this is all going to go in our favour, this reduction, and that tomorrow our mini lockdown will be lifted, our music ban will be lifted, the curfew will be lifted in regards COVID-19. And again, we are still waiting for confirmation of that is going to happen, so at least I can get back to work and start earning some money, basically, while all the madness is going on. Right, just to put that in context then, the figures for the month of August for Zakynthos, we've had 149 cases of COVID being identified here on Zakynthos for this month. When you consider in July we had 272, whereas in June we had 7. The month before that, in May, we had 44, and in April we had 177. The highest amount we had was in July, but the next highest was in March at 184. So again, August at the moment, it is still, and we're only in the 12th of August at the moment, it's still a high infection rate. So we're still waiting to see what they deem our epidemiology to be like and whether this ban will get lifted. As for deaths across the country at the moment, that seems to have stabilised. 19 deaths yesterday, 19 deaths today being reported. That brings the death toll now to 13,138 people since the pandemic started. And once again, our condolences to people that have been affected. When it comes to ICU cases, that is now starting to creep up quite a bit. At the moment, in critical cases, I did report to you the other day of 219. At the moment, that number has crept up to 226. 135 of those are male and 91 of those are female. Once again, remember the number is 900. That's the amount of ICU beds for COVID that Greece has before. Obviously, there is going to be pressure on the system there. But then again, with everything else that's going on with fires and injuries and all the other stuff, those numbers are starting to creep up. And again, let's pray that they don't go any higher than what they already have been. Going on to the news today, some very, very interesting news. A big blaze. Hang on a minute. I've just jumped ahead there in a story. Yes, first story today, the public funeral of the volunteer firefighter Vasily Flores, who lost his life last Friday while rushing to fight a fire. It has now been said that his funeral that was conducted yesterday, it was going to be paid for by the public purse, and that his family would also be given a pension for the death of the firefighter. The Greek Prime Minister announced the granting of the pension to the family at the time when the cabinet was starting, a few kilometres away at the church of Ias Konstantinos and Eleni in Onyolossi. Friends and relatives were saying their last goodbyes to the volunteer fireman Vasily Flores. Now, the Prime Minister Mitsotakis said in his speech, at this time, unfortunately, we are saying goodbye to the volunteer firefighter Vasily Flores, who tragically lost his life in front of the fires. At the same time, he also announced that the government decided to award a pension to the family of the unfortunate volunteer firefighter who lost his life trying to help his fellow citizens. The Prime Minister concluded, the least we could do after that was to give a pension to his wife and children. He had 2 children, which was recently decided by the government. However, I think that the greatest honour to his memory is to protect and upgrade our natural environment, for which Vasily fought until the end. Do you know what? I just don't like the rhetoric. I really do not like the rhetoric. A man has lost his life. You've done the honourable thing. You've given him money for his family so his family can be taken care of and looked after. But I just think sometimes some of the wording just rings so hollow, so very hollow. You've done a good job there, Mitsotakis. You've given the family money. You've paid for the funeral. But this thing about that last statement, to me, just from a politician, I'm sorry, it just rings really hollow. The man has given his life, and that is the end of it. And again, now at least his family is going to be taken care of, and I just hope that you live up to that promise that you have made. As for the environment and everything else, yes, it'd be nice if you named somewhere after him, but I think it's a bit early to talk about that. It's the immediate at the moment. Get the fire out, get his family taken care of, and then worry about that after the wash up has been done. But anyway, we'll wait and see what the fallout is. And also, it'd be nice to hear what the family has to say about everything and how they've been treated since all of this has gone on. A big blaze that sweltered overnight in the Peloponnese Peninsula forced the evacuation of many villages as exhausted firefighters battled wildfires across Greece for the ninth day on Wednesday. In northern Evia, Greece's second largest island, flare-ups remained the main problem for firefighters, who were joined by volunteers to combat the flames. In the Peloponnese, a flare-up started near Olympia, the site of the first Olympic Games, and that spread to Dorothea as it intensified on late Tuesday, burning virgin forest and leading to authorities to have to evacuate 20 villages in that location. Now, about 580 Greek firefighters were helped by colleagues from France, Britain, Germany and the Czech Republic, and they were battling blazes in Dorothea. So obviously our British firemen that have come over, that is where they are located at the moment. Now, the fires that broke out during Greece's worst heat wave in 3 decades last week, with searing temperatures and dry heat, were causing tinderbox conditions. At the Prefki seaside resort of Evia, a cafeteria owner by the name of Thrantsivolis Kostas, 34, looked at an empty beach. He said, if we did not have these problems, the beach at Prefki would be full of people right now. It is just us. He also said if the helicopters and water bombing planes had come right away and operated for 6 and 7 hours, the wildfires would have been put out in the first day. A Russian Ilyaf 1176 water bombing plane landed in Athens on Tuesday to assist firefighting in operations, and another one is expected to arrive, and that one will be stationed in Thessaloniki. Now, more than 500 fires burned across Greece in the last week, forcing the evacuations of dozens of villages and thousands of people. Our climate is changing, and we need to make hard choices as a species to avoid the worst. This is what the astronaut Thomas Piquet tweeted from the International Space Station orbiting the Earth. He said, "My heart goes out to all affected by the wildfires and the intense heat in the Mediterranean," because again, satellite imagery has been taken of the areas and the locations on the ground, and it's stunning, the pictures that have been released of the damage and of the intensity of the fires that have been burning across Greece at the moment. Now, interestingly, the National Observatory of Athens, the NOA, which is also the weather service as well, is forecasting rain Thursday morning in the northern and central Aegean. Now, including Evia, the island where most of the devastation and catastrophic wildfires have been raging for 9 days. So again, the weather report says temperatures will ease on Wednesday afternoon as hot air masses will gradually leave the region. Now, the Metro Weather Agency warns that the caution is required in the regions affected by fires where storms may actually cause flooding. Anyway, the weather is expected to improve from Thursday afternoon onwards. So again, that's going to be interesting to see if this prediction from the weather forecasters is correct. Trust me, people were sending comments about the amount of rain they're experiencing in the UK, and I was saying, well, send some of it over here. We could actually do with a bit of heavy rain just to dampen things down a bit, just to take away the fear of fire. So again, when we go from absolute fires, and then they're now saying on the second hand, we may have rain and it may also cause floods. And don't forget, because of all the vegetation that has been burned and destroyed, they actually act as flood barriers by absorption of water. They might go from one extreme to the other. So they might be pumping everywhere out, as well as putting fires out as well. So again, we'll wait and see if this prediction is correct. Fingers crossed it is correct, that we do get rain over in those areas to help fight the fires. We get a little bit of rain here would be good, again, just to dampen things down and obviously make it less of a threat in regards fires. Right, the next lot of news is all very Zakynthos based for those people that are interested in the island. Interesting little story came in the press today. The Russian Jewish Congress has announced the launch of a fundraising campaign for the residents of Zakynthos. Now, they said, we express our sympathy and solidarity to all those affected by the disaster. They're obviously talking about the fires, but we must have a special attitude and special commitment towards the residents of Zakynthos. Simply put, we owe them. Today, the inhabitants of the island are in trouble. Almost all of them suffered one way or another. I think this is exactly the moment when now, together, we can repay them for their kindness and courage. This is what the press service of the Russian Jewish Congress President Yuri Gerin announced yesterday. Now, he expressed hope that members of the Jewish community will take part in this notable cause. Now, Canna recalled that Zakynthos is called the Island of the Righteous. It is the only territory entity in Nazi-occupied Europe where not a single Jew died during the Holocaust. In December 1943, the commander of the German Guard called the island's mayor, Lucas Kerr, and ordered him to give him the list of local Jews with names and addresses. Anyway, the mayor asked for time. He met with the Archbishop, Christinus, and 3 days later they submitted the required list, and it only consisted of two names, and that was the mayor and also the Archbishop. Now, all the Jews of the island were safely hidden from the local inhabitants, and none of the Christians, they said, of Zakynthos betrayed anyone who hid or was hidden. The mayor and the archbishop miraculously escaped execution. After the war, they were awarded the title Fair Among Nations, but all the inhabitants of Zakynthos at the time deserved this title. Together they saved all the Jews. There is no other such example in the history of the Holocaust, recalls Kanner. Anyway, according to the press service of the Russian Jewish Congress, he is now in constant contact with the Greek Jewish community. In the near future, the RJC will publish special account of this community in which it will be possible to transfer charitable donations and help Zakynthos. Well, all I can say is this: at the moment, we haven't been that badly affected here by what has gone on. Thank you to the Russian Jewish Congress for keeping us in their thoughts and raising some money. But what I'm hoping is that if anything is to come from them, the island here will obviously pass it on to those areas who probably need it more than what we need it at the moment, unless of course things start to change. But I'm hoping that we are getting through the worst of this. But again, it's also a bit of the history of the island and what makes Zakynthos very unique in that period of history here. Anyway, yesterday, another bit of local news. 6 detainees who were protesting on Tuesday to the Zakynthos public prosecutor for the mandatory vaccinations and measures against coronavirus appeared before the judicial authorities of Zakynthos in the context of spontaneous procedure. In other words, they were up before the judge. Those arrested started shouting loudly at the prosecutor, as a result of which their arrest was ordered, with the accusation of disruption of public service, disobedience, illegal violence and non-compliance with the measures against the spread of the coronavirus. Now, of those 7 people that were taken to court, one of them was actually released on the order of the prosecutor on the grounds of health. The spontaneous procedure which took place yesterday morning, the 6 that were arrested were sentenced to 7 months in prison. However, that was suspended for 3 years, and they were also fined €300 for not wearing masks in a public area as well. Finally, there were about 30 protesters outside the courthouse there to lend their support to those that had been arrested. So once again, I take my hat off to those people for going and basically protesting about mandatory vaccination. I would say those people are in the same camp as me. They're not against vaccination. It should be your choice whether you have the vaccine or not, but it should not be forced upon you either in the law or basically through threats, through left side pushing, as in businesses ordering it, otherwise you don't work for us. It should be your right, and it should be your right to choose whether you have the vaccine or not. And again, there are still questions to be answered about the vaccine safety. There are still questions to be asked. Why is every nation on this planet at the moment pushing the vaccine as if it was the be all and end all for everything? And I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of things going on behind the scenes that as yet we are still not learning about at the moment. Anyway, also on Tuesday, the Zakynthos police were out again. This time they issued fines of €5,000 on 2 locals for violating the quarantine measures. They obviously were breaking the quarantine. They probably tested positive, but they were fined €5,000 apiece for breaking those quarantine measures. In another case, in the early hours of Wednesday morning yesterday, and a fine of €2,000 and a 7-day suspension was also placed upon a cafe, which was in violation of the opening hours. And I think basically what that means is that establishment basically didn't close at 1 o'clock when the curfew is supposed to run. And obviously they've now paid the price with a fine and 7 days closure of their business. Furthermore, there were 15 violations in Zakynthos for the non-use of masks by employees and customers of stores. And in that case, those people have all been fined €300. Once again, just to remind you, even though you're on holiday, you go into a supermarket, you go into a store, you are expected to put a mask on when you go in to shop. And those people in those locations are expected to be wearing masks, obviously, while you're in there. So once again, don't become a victim of one of the police checks. Make sure you put your mask in when you go into shops and businesses. And also, in some ways, it's a little bit of a sign of respect for those people working in the business. They've got to stand in there for a whole of their shift wearing a mask while people come in, and people not coming in wearing masks probably does gall them a bit, because you're putting them at risk, the business, and you're putting yourselves at risk as well. Also as well, Zakynthos police made 3 arrests in connection with drug dealing. Police seized 276.2 grams of raw cannabis, electronic scales, and 180 euros in cash, and a motorcycle. Police made arrests on Tuesday in Zakynthos, 3 locals, 2 men and a woman. Information had been passed to them about drug trafficking activities on the island. The police then launched a raid into the city of Zakynthos town, where the 2 locals, a man and a woman, were initially located and arrested in possession of the stuff I've just told you about. Anyway, from the information that they received, it emerged that they'd already received the drugs from another person, and then obviously another raid was carried out, and that person was subsequently arrested as well. So all of those 3 people are to be taken before the public prosecutor's office, and we'll see what happens. Right, that's it for the news for today. Can I just thank all those people who are tuning in at the moment? Also, those people who've been sending their support for what's going on. Once again, just to remind people here on holiday, please just be very, very careful. We're not out of the woods yet as far as the fires are concerned. The fire brigade are deployed all over the island at the moment, obviously in picket point areas, ready to react if anything should happen. Also as well, Jane said yesterday evening as she was coming back from the airport around about 9 o'clock at night, there was lots of firemen down by the fire station. Obviously, I'm not sure if we've been reinforced from anywhere outside of Greece. However, we'll probably get more information of that as the day goes on. And please, if you do see a fire, just remind you the number is 199. 199. Call that number. They will take your call in English, take your call in Greek, and they will either tell you the fire's been reported, or they will thank you and obviously ask you for more information as well. Anyway, that's it from me. Kind of a busy day today. Getting ready for tomorrow, when hopefully our music ban and also our curfew ban should be lifted. Again, we'll be watching the press very carefully throughout the afternoon and expecting us to go back to work tomorrow. Our 7 days has been done. 7 days, which in my mind was not necessary. Although I've got to be honest, we were looking at our epidemiology stats, and it was just a matter of time before we were going to get clobbered. You just knew it was going to happen. What it's achieved this 7 days, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely diddly squat. It has not done anything. All it's done is taken money out of the economy, if you see what I mean, where people could have been spending more money because they could go out later, enjoy themselves. Ow! And I've just been stung by a wasp on my toe, so I think it's time for me to go. Thank you. I'll catch you later. Ta-ra! Oh, Jesus Christ!